All right, so we'll get started. My name is John May. I am the video and engagement manager here for Webgility. So I make a lot of the YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn content for Webgility. So both customer-facing videos for training how to use our software, and also videos around like thought leadership in e-commerce and accounting, and how to get the most out of both your online store and your accounting system. So. Today we're going to be talking a lot about both listings and inventory management in general. I think it's important to go over both of those concepts because you can't have one without the other, obviously. And we'll dive into, let me start the agenda here. My picture is missing for me on this page. That's what I look like. You have a video of my face anyways, but for the agenda, so we're going to go over the basics of inventory management first, just again to kind of get a foundation for how inventory works and kind of the methodology behind it, maybe how you can optimize it a little bit better as a business owner. And then we'll get into the more meatier store listing stuff. So things that you can do as a store owner, generally like really easy things or low effort things that you can do to kind of put your best foot forward as an e-commerce seller. And then we'll kind of round everything out with some tools and technology that you can use to kind of go in tandem with all of these concepts and methods to make things easier, save you time, save you money, all that good stuff. And then we'll end with a quick demo and a Q&A session. If you guys have any questions throughout the meeting, feel free to pop them into the questions section under GoToWebinar. You can also chat freely. You are muted by default just to kind of keep things less chaotic. But if you do have a question you want to kind of ask it in an open forum setting, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you and kind of have that dialogue. So don't feel shy. Feel free to ask any questions you have. That's why I'm here. All right, and to get started, again, we're going to start with inventory, but I thought we'd kick it off with a quick poll. I just want to kind of get a gauge for where you guys are at with this stuff. So I'll launch the poll. It's going to be how many hours a week do you spend as a business owner? It might not be you specifically, but maybe somebody that works for you. How often does your business spend, or how long does your business spend on inventory and managing your stock levels? So I'll go ahead and launch that poll. All right, I'll close the poll and share the results. So it looks like 86% of you between 1 and 10 hours. I'd say that's generally pretty average. Like I think that's where a lot of people spend their time in that area. And then with looks like one person at less than an hour. That also makes sense, especially if maybe you're a business that's just starting out or doesn't have a lot of physical inventory that you need to manage necessarily. So I don't think this is generally an indication of how successful you are as a business or anything like that. I think it's just good to know maybe how long you spend on this sort of thing. So awesome, thanks guys. And to kick things off, so like I said, we're going to go over the basics of inventory management. I know that a lot of this stuff, and honestly, throughout the whole webinar, you're probably going to see a lot of stuff that makes you think like, oh, duh, like that's something that everybody should know. And that's true for a lot of these things. The one thing about e-commerce is that there is no tribal knowledge or like really secret thing that you can do that is going to like make you instantly successful. That's how everything is in life, right? But there are a lot of things that you can do holistically that contribute to your success and will, like I said, put your best foot forward as a business owner. So starting with the foundation, inventory management, it's the concept of managing, overseeing the goods and materials that you sell or hold. So purchasing, storage, tracking, all that good stuff. And then how you manage your inventory or the methods of managing inventory all depend on a lot of different variables. So obviously the type of goods that you sell. So if you sell perishable goods or like non-inventory, or you do consignment, there's going to be a lot of different workflows that you have to work around depending on what you sell. It also depends on your space availability and your budget. So if you don't have a ton of money to rent a warehouse and store goods, you're obviously not going to use a method that relies on like a lot of logistics and trucking and stuff. So one thing that I did want to share is Webgility did a survey recently to 800 sellers, online sellers, and 22% of the sellers in the survey said that they spend 15 to 30 hours a week on inventory management. So that's pretty close to where we were at, maybe a little more than what we had on the meeting here. But just, again, good to see how long other people are spending on that. get kind of an average there. So moving on. So the methods to inventory management. You'll see a lot of different methods, and I use air quotes here because really it's not necessarily that these methods were thought out in advance or that they started out as methods or like techniques in the first place. It generally just comes out of necessity based on what you sell or how your business operates. So two of the most popular methods, and I won't spend too much time on this, but two of the most popular methods that you'll see are the first in, first out and ABC analysis method. ABC analysis being that you have generally three different tiers of your inventory, one being your most expensive inventory, your moderate value, and your low cost, like you see in this graphic here. So obviously your most expensive inventory, you're going to want accurate and like micromanaged control over that inventory because it costs you a lot to acquire and to store and to sell. So that generally relies on the workflow of separating it out and managing it differently depending on how important it is to you. Whereas first in, first out is a lot more centered around either like perishable goods or things that when you get it, you want to sell the thing that you have held on to the longest. So you want to sell the oldest inventory first, which makes sense. Some of the other stuff is really situational, right? Like consignment inventory, you as the seller might not actually own the goods. You're just selling it in your storefront on behalf of the person that's supplying it. And then you have drop shipping, which is a huge phenomenon in the e-commerce industry. If you know about Amazon, you know that drop shipping exists. You don't actually physically hold that inventory yourself. It's outsourced to either the supplier or a drop shipper, respectively, who will deliver and handle the logistics themselves. And then other things like RFID and vendor managed. Think of vendor managed as like somebody who owns a vending machine is a really easy example. They go in and manage the stock and the levels of that vending machine themselves. So another tidbit from our inventory survey, 87% of the sellers from this survey use some form of management technique, which is it's good. It's good to have a technique for your inventory. And ABC and first in, first out, again, being the most popular. But 25% of the sellers that use these inventory management techniques aren't necessarily confident that they're using the right process. So if any of you guys, if you have questions about maybe what process you should be using, or maybe if your technique is working for you, feel free to reach out. I know that there's a lot that goes into this sort of thing, so don't feel shy. Feel free to ask any questions or maybe ask for advice. All right, and so to get started on sort of what you can do to improve your processes and how to understand improving your inventory management as a whole is kind of starting with the basics again. Doing manual inventory audits is not a bad thing. So also known as doing physical inventory. If you've worked in retail at all, this is not a foreign concept to anybody, right? Generally, this is a very painstaking process. If you don't have something like an RFID or a barcode reader that does this for you automatically, you're counting your inventory by hand and making sure that it's updated in either a spreadsheet or your accounting system, and obviously not fun at all. The benefit to doing this, though, at least I would say annually as a business owner, is that you have a baseline. You can go into either your new fiscal year, new fiscal quarter with a definite understanding of where your stock levels are at. Obviously, this is going to be harder the bigger you are and the more you scale as a business. Obviously, more SKUs means more tracking and more time invested. But as a new business owner or somebody that's just starting out, maybe doesn't have a whole lot of inventory physically, this can be a pretty easy thing to do. And again, it gives you a really good baseline to start out with and know that things are working correctly. And kind of aside from all of this, you can automate this process to a degree with inventory automation. And then using barcode readers and RFID readers kind of is another additional way to automate that process as well. All right, and so optimizing your process. One thing, and this is one of those aha or I guess duh moments that a lot of people have, is the use of SKUs. So stock keeping units, you can refer to them with barcodes or item units. Any, I guess, as a concept, any unique code or unique number or schema that you use for identifying each product is what we're talking about, right? Generally, we just refer to these as SKUs. It's the easiest way to refer to them. One thing that you should know about SKUs is that it is probably one of the most important things that you can do for your inventory to make sure things are managed properly and to kind of reduce the headache in the long run. It might not seem like a big deal, especially if you're a new seller and you only have 5 items or something like that, but the more that you grow, your catalog is going to grow, you're going to have a ton of different SKUs, and it's good to have a schema or a process for defining those items and kind of sorting them into different categories so that they're easy to identify. So be diligent with your SKUs. Make sure that you're not reusing SKUs, even if you discontinue selling certain items. Don't reuse old SKUs. It is just going to confuse you at some point and kind of become a hiccup. Try to come up with an individual, unique SKU for each item that you sell. Again, it seems like something that is so obvious, but at Webgility, we see people who mismanage their SKUs, and when it comes time to try and automate their processes and sync their inventory and make sure things are just doing things automatically for them, SKUs become kind of the linchpin for the issues that they run into there. So other things that you can do are optimizing your packing and picking. So utilizing like pick lists and bins if you have a physical like location that you're managing your inventory in. That helps a lot because then you can use that in conjunction with barcodes and RFID readers to sort things and make sure that things are divvied up correctly and managed in their own compartments. And then setting up shipping workflows and processes. If you work with a shipping provider, a lot of them have integrations with things like ShipStation, Shipping Easy, that can automate all of your shipping workflows. So like printing shipping labels automatically, automatically calculating your shipping rates and boxes. So there's a lot of, I guess, potential with your shipping workflows and processes that you can kind of go wild with. And then alongside the shipping workflows and processes, offering tracking and delivery notifications to your customers, again, seems like an easy thing, kind of a duh thing to do, but it goes a long way in creating trust and making sure people feel comfortable buying from you. If they know that they can rely on a accurate tracking and delivery system, they don't have to think twice about buying from you. And then if budget or even time is a concern for you, drop shipping or outsourcing your inventory to a supplier is definitely an option. Like I said, drop shipping has become super popular in the e-commerce industry, especially for Amazon sellers, because you don't have to manage any of that inventory yourself. You can find a supplier that sells a product that resonates with you or one that you would sell yourself anyways, and go through them to manage the inventory and delivery. Obviously, the downside is your margins are going to be a little bit thinner, but it is still an option, especially for somebody maybe just starting out. All right, and managing returns. So returns nobody wants to deal with them. It's something that is going to happen at one point or another, either because somebody has buyer's remorse, they buy something that they thought they wanted in the moment and decided they didn't later on, or something goes wrong with the package and needs to be returned inevitably. So one thing that you can do here is create a clear and concise return policy. Don't make people read between the lines or guess whether something's going to be eligible for return. Make it easy for them, make them understand that the process that you've laid out is how it will work every single time, or at least give them the opportunity to reach out to you to kind of discuss that eligibility so that they feel comfortable buying something that they maybe aren't sure is going to fit them or isn't going to be exactly what they're looking for. So giving that comfortability and trust is, again, one of those things that you can do to kind of attract buyers. You can automate returns as well with some software based on like if the condition of the item is still in its packaging, it can be automated, returned directly to your inventory. You can also prepay for shipping labels for customers. This is one thing that might be, it scales differently depending on how big you are as a business. I think for newer sellers, this could be a super easy way to get trust of customers. If you're sending them prepaid shipping labels, it's just kind of a little added touch that customers might be impressed by. Seeing that you include something that allows them to send it back for free is a small gesture, but it's one that can buy a lot of trust. Whereas you might not want to buy prepaid shipping labels for all of your items if you have like thousands of orders a month. So it's one of those things that if it makes sense to you as a business, you can definitely do that. I think that at any level, it definitely is one of those nice touches though. Obviously, you want to inspect your returns and kind of get on those returns as soon as possible. This is especially important if you have a perishable inventory or something that expires, obviously, because if they're sending it back, you need to get it back into your inventory and back onto the site as soon as possible. And then something we'll talk a lot more about is analyzing and tracking your data. So not just related to returns, but understanding why people are returning and the condition that they're returning in, understanding chargebacks and how frequently those happen is a good way to protect yourself and to make sure that your customer satisfaction is increased. Last couple things you can do here are like money back guarantees and warranties, just like prepaid shipping labels. They might not really come into play that often, but they are definitely one of those things that can kind of entice people to buy from you and make them feel comfortable. And as I mentioned on the last screen, so analyzing data is super important. And just to start off with a snippet from our survey, about 11% of sellers from that survey said that their biggest challenge as an e-commerce business is understanding their profit and the loss for each item that they sell. So I think, and I think most people could agree that understanding how profitable you are and the cost of the goods that you're selling at the end of the day is one of the most important things that you should be paying attention to as a business, because that's why you're in business generally, unless you have something that you're doing that's like your passion and you don't really care about the money. You're going to want to know how profitable you are and which items are selling profitably and which ones aren't, right? So using a software that allows you to look at your business analytics or your order data is paramount. So with this, you can monitor your turnover rate, so you can look at what's selling quickly and how often you're replenishing your inventory, and kind of look at what you need to adjust in terms of your slow-moving products, or if you need to more heavily invest in a product that's selling really well. You can use this to find trends and spikes in your own catalog. Obviously, stuff like holidays come into play here. Like, it's no secret that around Christmas time or a couple months before Christmas, online sales spike because that's when people are shopping. But other things you can look for here, a good example would be like Amazon Prime. Prime Day, it comes a couple times a year now. You can plan ahead for Prime Day and know that maybe you need to stock up on specific items that fall into that promotion. So things like that all are generally really evident in your analytical data, but it's good to have a software that takes advantage of that. If you don't have like an integration or a software that does this already, a lot of stores, if you're using Amazon, Shopify, any of the big storefronts, they should have some sort of reporting that allows you to look at it. If you have multiple stores, you're probably going to have to either get an integration or go in between those stores individually and kind of piecemeal it together. But we'll talk more about that towards the end of the webinar. Last couple things here, you want to adjust your models for forecasting and updating it as frequently as possible. So if you are using a forecasting tool that pulls your Shopify and your Amazon and your BigCommerce all together, you want to make sure that you're updating that as often as possible with real data from your stores, so that it can be up to date. Obviously, using accurate data leads to accurate forecasting for the most part. And then I will mention AI a couple times here, but if you're experienced with data sets, like you use Excel, you feel comfortable with data analysis, not assuming that any of you are. I myself am not super comfortable. It kind of goes over my head a little bit. But if you are comfortable with that and comfortable with using AI like ChatGPT, I know that's a hot topic now, you can use ChatGPT to streamline this. So I read a whole write-up on using ChatGPT to analyze your data and recognize trends and kind of like give you feedback on what you could be doing. And it's really interesting. It's from what I can see, it looks like a really valid option for people that maybe don't have the time or don't have a degree in data analytics and want something else to do the work for them. So we'll send a link in the after the webinar, kind of explaining how to use ChatGPT at a base level, so that if you aren't familiar with it, you can take advantage of it, because it is free. There is a freemium option where you can pay for a more premium experience, but it's a cool tool. I feel like everybody should should or could use it for something in their day-to-day. All right, so we'll get to the what I'm assuming most people are here for, which is the listing side of things. I did want to start with another poll here. This is the only other poll in the webinar. Just want to see kind of what inventory you guys are managing as a business. So I'll launch this. So you'll see physical inventory, non-physical inventory. So things that, like, if you sell a digital good or like courses, something that isn't a tangible item. If you sell perishable items, I know technically that would be physical, but I feel like there's a good distinction between the two. And then if you outsource your inventory. So if you just take a couple seconds, respond, then we'll move on to the next bit. And we'll get another, oh, you guys already got it, so I don't need to give it any more time. Let me share the results here. And unsurprisingly, 100% of you are physical inventory, which makes sense. That's good. It means that this should all be very relevant to you for the most part. We don't need to dwell too much on this because it's you guys are all on the same page here. Awesome. So getting started in the listing stuff. So I wanted to quickly point out the difference between a custom store and a marketplace. Pretty self-evident, but the difference between a custom store is it's one that's custom coded. You are kind of building it from the ground up yourself or hiring someone to build it for you. The benefits of having a custom store are the flexibility with the presentation of everything in your catalog. So you can take a lot more control over the color scheme and the branding, where things are positioned on the page, how big things are on the page. You have complete control over everything for the most part. And that means that you can aesthetically tie it into your actual website if you're kind of running these in tandem. A lot of people will run like a front page or a landing page for their website that redirects to, if you're using a Shopify or an Amazon, it'll redirect to those stores. And that's great too. But if you have a custom store, you have a lot more, again, customizability. And with that comes the ability to add tools, integrations, and utility that allow you to kind of suck more out of the business. So you can, like we talked about, kind of integrate all of your data, pull your data from all of your different stores very easily, especially if you have control over everything like that. Now, a marketplace has its own set of benefits. Obviously, the lower investment is a huge pull. It's a lot easier to get into a marketplace like Shopify or Amazon or Squarespace or any of those marketplaces because of the fact that you don't have to rely on like a developer to go and custom code everything. The website itself has its own built-in like advertising and listing. So the algorithm itself is already built in. You don't have to feel like you're starting from the ground up on your SEO or your marketing. No hosting or development costs associated. So the barrier to entry is a lot lower. And I think the best thing is that you can start new stores and kind of expand into new marketplaces with very little ramp time and, again, a lot lower cost. So as opposed to having to build multiple stores and you've got months of development time, you can just go in, say you want to start an Amazon today, start an Amazon business account, and you're already off to the races. So just wanted to point out the differences there, the benefits and the cons. But we'll get started with the first thing that you can do for your listings to kind of level up. Again, I know I mentioned that some of this stuff you're going to look at and say, well, duh, that makes sense. And again, that's true for all of this. This is all things that you can do, that anybody can do without any real experience with anything, to make their store a little bit more appealing to potential customers. So product titles and descriptions. This is by and large probably the most important thing, because if you don't have an accurate description or an accurate title that describes what you're selling, people aren't going to know what they're buying. So we have a couple examples on the right side here. You can see that the bone broth explains clearly what it is, what's included in it, has a bunch of different options for purchase, and then some features on why you'll love it, what would draw somebody to that product. Whereas on this Amazon listing for a Calvin Klein sweater, it is very short, very concise. And while somebody might know exactly what they're looking for, and maybe this is like their staple in their wardrobe, a lot of people aren't going to stumble on this and be wowed by the description or the title here. So including things like brand names, model numbers, key features, things that are important for people to know about the product is super important. And again, to harp on the AI thing, you can use ChatGPT to write you descriptions and titles. If you feed GPT a prompt that says, write me a description for this sweater, these are the attributes of the sweater, it's gray, this is the material it's made out of, this is the fit, just like all the stuff that you would generally put into a description, it'll write that description for you. I don't necessarily think you need to use it for titles, but it is always an option if you're feeling like you have a little writer's block or maybe don't have that creative itch to kind of make that appealing. Next thing, and this is honestly actually equally as important as your listings. So presentation is one of the biggest things that you'll probably want to focus on as a business. Even if you don't custom code your store, you still have ways to invest in the presentation of your online store and your catalog to make sure that people feel like the items are accurately represented and that they are exactly what they're looking for. So using high quality images, not just for your listings, but if you have hero images on your site, that's a really, really big component here. You want things that grab attention. Having consistency across your products is big. So if you see at the bottom, there's a shoe on the right side. It's a white backdrop, very clearly contrasted towards the shoe. It's a lot higher quality. And then on the left-hand side, you see there's somebody's dirty room in the background. The colors don't really contrast well, it sort of blends in a little bit. The picture is lower quality. So obviously it doesn't mean that there's no like definite number that you're going to sell more of if you include higher res images, but having things consistent, making sure that your images are as high quality as possible will definitely add more oomph to your store. And if you don't feel comfortable using editing software, if you've never used editing software before to kind of, I guess, make your pictures look better and edit them, you can outsource this to something like Fiverr. There are a lot of freelance sites these days, but Fiverr's probably the biggest one and most cost effective. Just pay somebody a couple dollars, $5, $10, $20 to edit your whole catalog of pictures against the same backdrop. And that saves you a lot of time. And again, just kind of puts your best foot forward as a store, gives people the ability to see the whole product and what it looks like. Videos are another thing that is kind of becoming more important. If you have the ability to post videos of your site, it just gives people more trust that they're buying something that they know they're going to like when they can see all the angles of it rather than just one really manicured version of the product. All right, and keywords and SEO. So SEO is probably the most complicated concept we'll talk about today, mostly because there's a whole line of work, there's a whole industry built on search engine optimization and keywords. So obviously, if you know what keywords are, if you know what search engine optimization is, you know that you want to include your keywords in your description. If you can include them in your title too, that's awesome. The more you add that consistency across your catalog and around your site, the better you're going to rank in search engines. If you're new to SEO or not super experienced, some tools you can use here are Google Keyword Planner. And then for those that are maybe experienced with SEO, you've probably heard of SEMrush, but that is one of the bigger tools to use for SEO there. And then one thing that most people should be familiar with is the use of long tail keywords. If you don't know what it is, you probably know what it is, just not the term for it. Long tail keywords are, instead of like a specific keyword, like down here you see fire pit, fire pits, a long tail keyword would be like fire pits for your patio, a specific key phrase that people generally use when they're doing something like voice search. And I'm guilty of this myself constantly. Whenever I have a song stuck in my head or something that's been itching at me, I search literally what comes into my head on Google, and it finds that extremely niche thing that I was looking for. So one thing that you'll know is that people use these keyword phrases when they're close to purchase. So if you have these long tail keywords in your description, in the SEO of your site, you will get a lot of those people that are looking to buy something right now because they know exactly what they want. But as you can see down here, the fire pit conundrum, don't overdo it. There is a line to be crossed. You can keyword stuff. So don't put so many keywords of the same keyword in your description that it lowers your ranking. I don't know that there's a specific number of keywords that you don't want to hit, but I think you'll know when you're overdoing it. Just in moderation, you know. Make sure that they're there, but don't overdo it. All right, and another huge thing here is improving the customer experience. So this is kind of a theme that we talked about throughout the entire webinar, but If you have 5-star reviews or success stories, testimonials, anything that the customer is talking positively about your product, you want to use that, obviously. You want to put that out into the world and make sure people know that people trust you and people bought your product and are happy with it. So what you can do with this is you can put it on the product listing itself. That's a good way to obviously make people feel comfortable. Amazon's really good about this. Right under the title, it'll say the reviews that they can click on and it'll take them straight to the review section. But if you have a custom coded website too, you can include it on the home page. You can have a whole testimonial page. So there's a lot more that you can do with 5-star reviews or success stories or any of that customer feedback that you've gotten. And kind of in the same vein with custom developed websites, you can utilize things like Marker.io, SurveyMonkey, Hotjar, or some like a more enterprise version would be HubSpot, to gather feedback on what's working on your website, what's not working, and really understand the customer experience. So getting people to let you know that maybe they don't love either like maybe the color scheme or the presentation of the website or how something works mechanically, if there's like bugs on your website, that's another good way to indirectly improve the customer experience, because it's not necessarily doing anything for the customer in the moment, but it's giving you that feedback so you know what to improve in the future. And then something that you can and should definitely do if you have the ability is optimizing the performance for your website on any devices that it can be viewed on. Obviously, there's a lot of different devices that people can use now. We've got iPads, we've got Surface tablets, desktops, laptops, phones of all sizes and shapes, different like Apple versus Android. So there's a lot of variability when it comes to the technology that people are using to view your site, but you can optimize it in a couple of ways that at least make it run properly or run quickly for people. So there are tools that you can use to kind of get that optimization. If you're using something like Amazon or Shopify, generally your performance is going to be pretty good unless you have hundreds of thousands of products. That might not be able to be fixed, but you want to make it as sleek and run as quickly as possible for people. And then if you have the ability to add a live chat support, if you have somebody that can man it or use a chat bot that can kind of field responses for you and make sure that they're taking feedback, that is always a really good way to improve the customer experience, especially for things like returns and product questions, shipping, stuff like that. Awesome. And the last thing for listings specifically would be to make your shipping and pricing clear. I know we talked a little bit about shipping before, but what you want to do is make sure that people understand what shipping options they have, what they'll probably be paying. You can't generally give an accurate to the cent cost, at least on the listing, until they actually go to checkout and give you their zip code. But giving them the ability to get as much information as they can on the shipping and pricing without having to go through a bunch of hoops is going to be the best case scenario. Because if they're able to see all of the costs associated with whatever products you're selling at a glance, it's going to be easier for them to make that decision rather than like having to click into a bunch of menus or add it to the cart and do a whole bunch of stuff first. And then kind of along the same vein, adding an add to cart button obviously is something that everybody should have. And if you use a storefront, it's going to be there automatically. But a lot of options or a lot of storefronts or even custom coded sites, you can put a buy now button that instead of adding it to cart and they just continue shopping, it'll take them directly to checkout right at that point. So that is an option, maybe not one that you want to use for everything. Maybe it's something you notice that like on your site, one product is selling at a specific time of year, and generally the carts they don't include any other products that you sell. Maybe include the buy now button on that one, since you know most people are just going to check out right away with that one anyways. So just kind of a corner case, but it is something that can kind of encourage people to check out quicker. And then something else that you can do is cross-sell and upsell. So including related products or other popular products that you have, either at checkout or on the page, like with suggestions on your catalog, is another way that people can feel compelled to add more to their cart, increase your average order value. And if people feel that you're suggesting things that they're going to like on top of what they're buying, they're going to have a little bit more customer satisfaction. They're going to feel a little bit more trusting in your brand because they feel that you offer things that they like or they enjoy. And you can see here that making sure that the add to cart button is central and easy to access, maybe a color that doesn't blend in with the background, that's another really huge thing. Again, kind of a duh moment, but all these little things definitely add up to making a successful store. All right, so we talked a lot about tools kind of as an abstract and kind of alluded to the different tools that you can use. But I did want to go through a list of tools that you can use to get the most out of your site. This is not a definitive list by any means. If you feel that maybe there's other tools that you want suggestions on, feel free to email me directly. My email is john.may@webgility.com. You can put it in the chat. You can email us or just reach out to us at Webgility on our chat bot as well. But to start off, and I'd be remiss if I didn't plug Webgility in some way. So Webgility is an inventory and e-commerce accounting automation software. We also do analytics and data as well. But to go over kind of the gist of what Webgility does, we can pull your inventory from your store and sync it to your accounting. Any orders that come in from your store, we can post those directly to your accounting to make sure that you don't have to create those sales receipts or invoices or whatever they are manually. And then we can pull your data from all of your different stores, your Shopify, your Amazon, your WooCommerce, and kind of keep it all in one place so that you can look at everything at a glance. And then some other tools that I wanted to definitely mention here. Copy AI is a really good AI tool for generating titles and descriptions along with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is definitely the more ubiquitous one to use right now in terms of AI. I'm sure you guys have heard of it in some way, shape, or form. Everybody's using it. And then Prompt Genie is one that I wanted to call out if you're not familiar with ChatGPT or just like don't feel comfortable writing prompts. Not all of us know how to write a good prompt for an AI service. It's kind of a new thing. So Prompt Genie will actually kind of guide you through the process of making a good prompt that gets you what you want out of AI services. As far as photo and design goes, I included a couple options here. So Photoshop is obviously a paid, very premium product. It's Adobe. It's one of the most ubiquitous photo editing softwares that exists. As far as free versions of that, if you don't have access to Photoshop or just want to use a free version, GIMP is a very, very similar offering. It doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but if you can do it in Photoshop, generally you can get it done in GIMP as well. There is a bit of a learning curve. But for Canva, Canva would be a more scaled down version, a lot more user friendly. It's very, very popular for Instagram posts and YouTube thumbnails. I use it myself for my YouTube thumbnails just because it's so quick and easy. They have a freemium option, or you can pay to get access to like stock images and more premium graphics. But the free version does just fine as well. And then CreaSquare and BoolTool are both very good like website design and editing softwares or services that you can use to kind of round out that suggestion list. I know I mentioned for SEO, the Google Keyword Planner is a really good intro into understanding keywords and using it. Obviously, it's Google, so it's going to be probably one of the most invested in tools that you can find. And again, I mentioned SEMrush before too. If you know anything about SEO, you can use SEMrush. It's a little bit more in-depth and has a lot more capability. And then for apps and sites, AppSumo is a good like app listing site where you can see a list of technologies that you can use for your website. Same thing with Digital Samaritan. I wanted to shout out Digital Samaritan specifically because they have an AI section that gives you a list of different AI software that you can use in different areas of your website, like photo editing and the titles and descriptions for copy, and they even have one that's gotten a lot more popular recently is like podcast editing. So you can upload your footage and it'll edit your podcast automatically. So just a lot of capabilities that I wanted to point out there. And speaking of tools, I know I mentioned Webgility, but I wanted to talk a lot more about automation specifically. This doesn't just pertain to Webgility, even though that is a big part of what we do. But one of the biggest things that I want people to take away is that there are services, softwares, things that you can do for your business that kill that clerical work or that manual work that you're doing, either 1 to 5 hours a week or 10 to 20 hours a week when you're doing your inventory or accounting or whatever it be. So 50% of store owners say, and this is based on a study that a really big retail commerce website did, they say that the unification of processes and data across their channels is the biggest challenge. So making sure that things stay consistent between their accounting and their store and their shipping software, and all the different systems that they use, making sure that things are consistent across those systems is going to be one of the more important things, because you want your data to stay consistent. So automation will save that time in doing that clerical work. So when you're doing inventory, something that could be done automatic is whenever somebody buys something from your Shopify or your online store, you can have an integration take that order and push it into your accounting system like QuickBooks, or if you use Xero or NetSuite, there's integrations for that as well, so that you don't have to go and create those sales receipts or those transactions manually to keep the paper trail. Additionally, when you pull those orders, it can automatically adjust the inventory that's in your system of record. So making sure that you don't have to do any of those tedious things that can be just done automatically for you. This also reduces errors. So human error is a thing, and computer errors definitely are a thing, but they're a lot less common, and they generally have a method to them. If you have an error, you can figure out what caused it, why it happened, and fixed it, and that generally fixes the issue. Whereas human error, you're going to run into things where people just have a brain fart, they just make a mistake, and it's going to happen. But using an integration can kind of kill that possibility and that chance for error. And then another thing that kind of goes along with saving time and money is that you're able to invest that time or that money into scaling your business. So if you spend less time managing your inventory, you spend less time having to move back and forth between your stores to look at data, you can spend that time opening a new store or looking at new products that you should be selling, or on the phone with suppliers, ordering new stuff for your catalog. So there's a lot more that you can get out of it if you spend a little bit of money, you invest in a service or software integration that does all of this for you. And I know I mentioned some of this, but stuff that you can automate: your accounting and order posting, your listings, your inventory, purchase orders can even be automated. Your shipping, you can set up workflows to automate your shipping, and your expenses and fees are a big part of that as well. All right, so to kind of round everything out, I wanted to, let me get out of full screen here. I wanted to show you guys just a little snippet of what Webgility does, just so you can see it in action. I'll actually be doing it on our cloud version of Webgility. We do have a desktop app as well, but I just wanted to show you guys like what it looks like to use an integration and how it works generally. So I'll just log into our Webgility online. And the first thing you're greeted with in Webgility Online is your dashboard. I'm using a demo account, so it shows no data in here until I hover over it. But you'll see your revenue and expenses. You can separate it out by the store that you're in. So up here at the top right, if you have multiple stores, you can go into each one and look at them individually. Just kind of get a snapshot of how things are going with your orders, see the order details. You can break things out and look directly at where it was billed from, where it's being shipped to, any history, and the profitability of each order. So if you have your cost of goods sold worked into Webgility, it'll show you how much you profited off of it against your expenses and fees. And in terms of inventory, I wanted to call this out specifically. Under your product catalog in Webgility Online, you can sync your products from, again, your store to your accounting or vice versa. So you can see, you can filter by either your price out of sync, your quantity out of sync, or look at it all. And then you can select which way you want to sync from. So if you want to sync from QuickBooks, which is what we recommend, just select QuickBooks. And then any that have errors, you can just select them and then hit sync. It's going to give me an error because I'm not actually connected to anything. This is just a test account, but you sync it and it's easy as that. That means that whatever you had as the price or the inventory in your online store is going to be pushed from QuickBooks into that online store to override it. So you'll see that if I'm syncing from QuickBooks, it's $25. It'll sync it to $25 in your Shopify. Another thing that you can do is map products. So I know we talked about SKUs a lot in the beginning and talked about how important it is. If you have a lot of items that maybe don't have SKUs, or the SKUs don't match between your Shopify and your QuickBooks, you can use Webgility to make that connection manually. You just say, hey, this is the item in Shopify, and this is the item that I want it to connect to in my QuickBooks. And we make that connection. And then any orders that come in with that SKU from Shopify will automatically sync it to the SKU from QuickBooks. Some other things I wanted to call out quickly are the analytics tools that we have in Webgility. This is an add-on that you can add to any Webgility subscription, either our desktop or online subscription. And this is our analytics. So this is, we pull the data from your online store, from whatever online stores you have. If you have any expenses or fees, we'll kind of put that all together so that you can see the total profitability. You can look at forecasts between your stores and see maybe how we're expecting you to do over the next 30 days, over the next 14 months, give you a trending analysis. You can sort it by store, sort it by currency if you have multiple currencies, any fulfillment methods. And then profitability is something we're working on expanding a little bit more as well. Right now, it looks at anything that you have put in for your cost of goods sold, your shipping, any processing fees for payment processing, advertising, taxes, all of that, and it'll give you your net profit based on what we have been fed from your stores. And this looks at all of your stores accumulatively. So a lot of capability here. Again, this is accessible across both of our products. And as far as our desktop product goes, I didn't want to go too far into that one because there's a lot more to do there. Our desktop product has a lot more capabilities, being that it's like a software that you install on your computer. It has a database. We're actually able to take your listings from your QuickBooks or the other way around and list them directly onto your Shopify store or your Amazon. Some stores have a little bit of a finicky relationship with it. Like I think eBay has some quirky things that go on with it, just store limitations, but we can take your items from your QuickBooks and post them directly onto your online store for you. With Shopify specifically, there's an added functionality where you can take your variants from your store, even if you have like a POS system, like a QuickBooks POS, and you can post it to Shopify. And if you're using QuickBooks POS, it'll pull the image directly from QuickBooks POS, put it on the store for you, put the description that you have in there. Everything is already on there for you with the variants and all. So a lot more capability there. And that'll do it for the demo. But I did want to call out that if you wanted to experience the Webgility experience and wanted to see what it has to offer, either online or desktop, you can schedule a demo with our team. If you go to webgility.com, we have a chat system. Our customer support team will get you scheduled for a demo, or you can call in and we'll get something scheduled for you. You can email me directly and I'll schedule something for you. So we'd love to show you what it has to offer and what it can do. We are, if you're interested, we are going to include a discount code in the email that we send out to attendees. So take a look in the email once we do send that out. But now we'll get to the Q&A. I'm actually going to hop back over here just to show it. There we go. So yeah, I wanted to get you guys' questions. If you have any questions for me, I can unmute mics. If you guys want to raise your hand, we can have an open dialogue, or if you prefer, just put it in the questions box at the bottom or the chat in GoToWebinar directly. I'm gonna close my blinds here. Got a little bright. All right, it looks like we got a question from Omar. Hey, Omar. So your question is, can you run Webgility for multiple stores? So yes, so we can integrate directly with any stores that you have. We have a full integrations page at webgility.com where you can see all the integrations that we have. But generally, all the most popular stores are there: Amazon, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, eBay, Etsy, Shopify, all those big ones. And all you have to do is connect it in each instance of it, either in the desktop or the online application, and you can switch between them freely, and you'll be able to sync between all of your stores automatically. All right, well, if there are no questions, then we can go ahead and end the webinar. I appreciate everybody for coming out. It's awesome to see people attend these webinars. We do plan on doing more in the future, so keep a lookout for any emails from us, or you can go to our events page on webgility.com and see any future events that we're having. Again, if you want to reach me directly, my email is john.may@webgility.com. If you want to see future content from us outside of webinars, I do post regular updates to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram Reels. I know Reels are really popular with the youngins these days. So We are doing more recently a Webgility Wednesday segment. So every other Wednesday, we're posting something centric to Webgility where we talk about a feature that we have that maybe not as many people know about, something that we feel is important to call out. And then in between those posts on those every other Wednesdays of Webgility Wednesdays, we do content specific to accounting and e-commerce in general, like sales tax, all things kind of revolving around e-commerce. So take a look at our YouTube channel. It's currently youtube.com/@Webgility Inc. If you just type there Webgility Inc. And that'll take you straight to see my face, which is everywhere these days. Again, I appreciate everybody coming out. Look for that email with the recording of the webinar and any links that we're going to be sending out. And look forward to hopefully seeing you guys at another one of these in the future.